think what I'm hearing is a huge shift, right? And if I may, it sounds like basically it's really a race to get fiber to every demand point. And has the model changed? In the essence that should the advice to other small ISPs that are growing right now with obviously abnormal economics, right? Like Daniel said, it's very unusual for our space right now. Is the focus really on just getting the pipe there? And do you guys believe that the service providers should really be focused, on that layer 1, layer 2 aspect of services, and let all these other additional services be just simply an enablement, that the fiber is an enablement factor? So should the ISPs keep it really clean and focus on uptime, connectivity to as many points, and really let all the other services ultimately in the long run be provided by cloud service providers and everyone else that can get on to that network? I mean, are we going through a major shift right now that should be considered?
Yeah, I think so. We've always been a kind of a purist shop, and we like simple products, and like I said, I think I think what you're seeing is kind of a shift in kind of when you go into new markets with fiber, there's a maturity cycle involved in it, and some of the stuff that we're talking about related to monetizing the pipe, kind of what you typically talk about in a conversation like this is kind of opportunities to increase margin by a few percentage points, and that's not what we got on the table right now. We have millions and millions of dollars of immediate opportunity, and you're willing to forego the maturity of some of your products and the need to create kind of a competitive edge through those things, and those are the kind of the two components. Like you're probably searching for a competitive edge or additional margin, and neither one of those are a factor if you've just been written a check to build fiber somewhere. And so yeah, I think it has shifted, or will continue to shift the model away from the traditional thinking of monetizing the pipe, and it's really a secondary factor to just getting as much fiber in the ground as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I think there has to be. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian.
No, I was going to say I understand the whole idea of coming from a very streamlined sort of a pure approach, but I do think two things. One is there has to be intentionality on universal service. I think you have to be intentional about it, and we spend a fair amount of time thinking that through. And I think people like us have a little bit of nimbleness and flexibility in doing that, rather than the large sort of behemoths who have sort of cherry pick things, right? So we don't have to cherry pick. We can include the community because you're part of the community. So I think that's an important part in terms of what the ISP's responsibility is. And then building on that, look, when a customer calls, even when they have password issues on their Chrome, they call us, right? Because at the end of the day, we are the only phone that they know and the only human beings that happen to pick up. So I think it's wise of the ISPs to understand what are the obligations that the consumer feels that we have to fulfill. And if you need to, then okay, how do you make that part of your business model, right? And I don't think that dynamic is going to shift. In fact, I think it's going to get higher and higher, because ISPs, I believe, are going to be like library curators. They're going to be in the position of being the collation of expertise, whatever that is. But we are going to be looked upon that lens, because the world is immensely complicated. It's going to become more complicated. But the consumer's looking at us to say, can you help me just understand things, right? So this is really simple stuff. I mean, We get calls from people saying, okay, my Wi-Fi is going on crazy. Now, it's some Wi-Fi that they got from Best Buy. But do we hang up the phone and say, well, that's not our problem, you go figure it out? We don't do that, can't do that, right? And I think as Brian said, if there's more applications, whether it's a smart home, whether it's a sensor in your water, whether it's a sensor in your, your thermostat, whatever that is, heck, your sensor in your freaking laundry machine, we are going to get that call. Make no mistake about it, because the 1-800 number doesn't answer. And we are going to be in that place where we are going to have to manage those multiplicity of expectations. So today we may just say, look, we're just going to head down and just build. But you got to be able to have the culture, the company culture, to say, hey, we have an obligation to the consumer. And I think that's immensely, immensely important, because I think it does generate revenue, but more importantly, it makes the network be sustainable, right? And if at the end of the day, the consumer is going to say, oh, I'm going to pay you $55 or $60, that value is for the first time going to be directly translated to actual value. Because prior they paid $90 and got something up to. Who goes and buys a car that only gets you up to 16 miles a gallon, or a pack of butter that gets up to a pack of butter? So the up to has been very insidious. This whole, we'll give you triple play, quad plays, very insidious. So we have to figure out what is that thing that the consumer is looking for. And I think they're going to be looking at us for a ton of stuff. And I don't think it's enough to sort of pull back and say, well, that's somebody else's problem. I don't think it is. The market would not allow that, I believe.
So let's
ultimately, we're all setting ourselves apart right now by being the people that can be reached to that point. And we're all setting ourselves apart by saying our support's local. You talk to a person here, our billing's all in-house. We don't farm it out. We don't make these big quarter-to-quarter decisions like these public companies do. So these are all interesting points, because we still have to be in touch with our community. And to answer the question earlier of what advice would I give other providers, one of the things that we didn't do a good job at over the last few years, we did a great job of expansion, but we didn't do good enough work within the community to say what we're doing, what services we were working on to improve. The customers that we signed up for our service knew about it and knew about, hey, these guys answer the phone. These guys do a good job. But we didn't do well within the community as far as getting the word out on our plans, on our investments, and building relationship with the city council, the town council, the county commissioners. And so we're actually learning that that there's some value to that. And it's an extension of what was just said. There's a connection that everyone builds from a provider standpoint with the customer, but there's also that connection with the community. And there's some stewardship associated with running a network within the community. And so you pair those things up, answering the phone, answering the customer's call, helping them with a Wi-Fi unit that they didn't even buy from you. That's important. I agree with that. We've never timed our calls here. We've never timed our tech support calls and said, be sure you got the phone and try to pump through the volume. Not once, right? We've had people deliver, we've had ladies deliver cookies to our tech support department. That's like a big moment of success for us. But if my advice was out there, I would add to what was just said and say, connect with your customer and connect with your community. And connect is obviously almost a pun at this point, but that's what we're doing, right? And recognize that we're connecting, because here's the other interesting thing too. I've started to see, I had somebody talk to me this week and said, hey, have you heard about this company in Montana? So I look at their website. They're a wireless ISP that all of a sudden bought a plow for fiber, right? There's a lot of creativity going on right now in the market. And I mentioned utilities earlier. There's municipal networks. There's creativity from low Earth orbit satellites. The market is so young for broadband. There's a lot of things can be done. And if I were a new provider starting up, I would build that relationship with the community, with the customer, have the hot dogs, have the barbecue. There was a broadband provider in Colorado that had their own beer made for their festival. Do whatever it takes to get that word out, because it's about getting the word out that people have a choice, because they haven't had a choice.